Here we go again. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Kian if you're brand new, and welcome to the video about the game that has fucked up my sleep schedule for years to come. Yes, this video is not clickbait. I'm actually taking my final stab at Criminal Case. If you're one of the few people that didn't come to my channel because of Criminal Case, or you have no idea what Criminal Case is at all, fortunately this video is not for you. I promise I'm making more content that's not about this game, but I gotta make one more for the OGs. This video was initially just going to be another one of my in a nutshell videos about one of the seasons of the game that I go deeper and deeper into detail about, but there was so much that I would have had to cover around the topic that I just decided to make a gigantic video once and for all. Don't get me wrong, in a nutshell is a part of this video. I've just got so much shit surrounding it to cover first. And I should also warn you, this is likely going to be a very long video with no real gameplay, and I plan to really hammer it home, and I'm going to go into as much detail as I possibly can about my former experience with the game, so buckle the fuck up. And I'm doing this at all because I didn't feel like I exited the game very properly on good terms, either from my perspective or from literally anybody else's. This is my way of not only making up for that, but finally actually leaving the game behind for good and moving on. Meaning, yes, this is going to be my final Criminal Case video once and for all. I know I've probably said that about 30 times in the past, but look, I've got 9 fucking pages of script that says otherwise. We're doing this shit, alright? We've got a lot to go into, so without further ado, here is Criminal Case Revisited. Before we get into all the juicy stuff, we need to start with where I literally started with the game and this YouTube channel. I started playing the game back in 2013 when my mom, of course, saw it on Facebook, and I don't know, I guess I just kind of got interested in it from that, and then I saw a lot of content from this YouTuber called PitchingAce88, and we'll get to him later. However, I didn't start making content on the game until late 2016, after I had pretty much just gotten homeschooled, and I had all the time in the world to grind stars, I guess, I don't know. My initial starting content wasn't really anything spectacular. It was just Arrest the Killers with no real commentary from my sort, and I'd make the occasional appearance with my garbage blonde hair at the time. Until I started to move more into the scope of different types of videos that were directly different from anything anybody else had been making at the time, for maybe the exception of Mark Kim, who was still playing the game at the time at least. I think the most talked about one that I still get asked about to this day is Criminal Case Funnies, basically a Comment Awards ripoff, but about criminal case and just adding criminal case memes, that type of format. It wasn't really anything special, but people really seemed to love it at the time. However, a little bit after I had stopped making those type of Criminal Case Funnies, PitchingAce88 just went on a 6-month hiatus from the game, and meaning that he was not live streaming the game anymore. And I saw an opportunity and I took it. So I started live streaming the game myself, and understand my PC was really not doing too well with me live streaming, so the quality wasn't anything spectacular, but I could run the game. The streams were nothing exciting at first, and they didn't do anything in comparison to his content, but then they started to really hit off. I remember, I think it was like case 52 or 53 of Mysteries of the Past, where I hit my first 100 concurrent viewers on YouTube, and that really blew my mind at the time. And then I think the final case of Mysteries of the Past, I had like 350 or like 375 viewers. It was insanity to me at the time, especially. However, along with a couple other reasons that I'll get into later, I started to get really burnt out by the game by the end of Season 4, and that was primarily my fault. I had been blurring out content. I was trying to get so many videos out from so many different games. I was trying to get other people involved in the channel. I was stressing myself out, and it's my fault that I burnt out, in all honesty, but I don't know. I felt like I wasn't really enjoying the game anymore. So when Season 4 ended, I announced that I was going to stop playing the game, and I actually gave my Facebook account to Ace, PitchingAce88, who I'll refer to for the rest of this as Ace, and that meant that he could start live streaming himself, and he could start making more videos on the game. He wouldn't have to replay the other like 30 or 40 cases that he'd missed. This was the time where I was definitely the most lost with my content on the channel, and this lasted for a good 2 years, most likely. I mean, you guys have seen it yourself. And whilst now I know what I'm doing, I'm definitely making more commentary style content on games specifically, I had no clue as to what I was going to do, and primarily I was still trying to revolve around Criminal Case even though I wasn't playing it at the time. I also made a couple of one-off videos like the one I made for Valorant that was definitely more advice-based, and that one blew up, by the way, so thank you guys for that. And whilst I would love to go deeper and deeper and deeper into this, this is a timeline of 3 years, and we've got a lot to cover here anyways, so let's just keep moving forward. I made a Discord server for myself, the one I have right now, link in the description below, and to say that things kind of got out of hand would be the understatement of the century. There was moderators who were actually spies from another Discord server that we were having beef with at the time, and there was developers who weren't actually developers, people raiding the server, and put it simply, the server was just active as fuck. Now, an active Discord server sounds good, and don't get me, it was nice to have a lot of people to talk to on a regular basis, but it was just impossible to manage at times. And in fact, at one point, it got so big, we actually merged with the other said Discord server, which we'll talk about later, to make one big Criminal Case Discord server. This was initially just my community server, but we just decided to merge Discords, and it got to the point where, after approval from a developer, we actually had the Discord server verified. Within the span of a year, I went from just having a community Discord server to having a literal verified Discord server, which back at the time was extremely hard to do, and you weren't able to do it for your own personal Discord servers. It had to be for a specific game or franchise or something like that. However, obviously all of this didn't come without its drawbacks, and if you thought that making content at the time was rough, well, also managing a Discord server also got me burnt out, and that was probably a helping factor with how I got burnt out so quickly from making Criminal Case content. And again, got so bad to the point where when I stopped playing Criminal Case, I kind of just stopped looking at the Discord server itself more and more and more, and I didn't feel like I was really being a part with it. So, after probably hundreds, if not thousands of arguments with other people in the Discord server, I finally gave it off to my other friend Jackson, aka Jack of all trades, and transferred ownership to him and another member of the staff. The Discord server comprised of literally just live commentary of the game, people's opinions on specific characters, people getting mad at other people's opinions about specific characters, people fighting over specific characters. It never stopped. But it was a nice place to have because, again, it was one of those things that I thought of as my second family, as my second home, because I didn't really have, how do I put this? Friends at the time? Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But those friends became distant, and as I started to lose interest, I just kind of stopped looking at the Discord altogether. I left, and that's how things moved on. But not everything was as easy as it seems. And, obviously we had our troubles and our trifles, but that wasn't the only place where I was an active member of the Criminal Case community, because the other Discord server happened to be for the Criminal Case Wiki. Oh boy. Yes, the Criminal Case Wiki had its own Discord server. It was this little fandom thing, and because it was literally impossible for me to not get into arguments with other people, of course, that's exactly what I did. And it was kind of a constant thing, and it was pointless because, again, we'd argue over literally anything we could argue about because we were young, ignorant, and stupid. I got to the point where the servers and the people in the server started butting heads for a while, until initially a couple people came together, including myself and other people from the Wiki Discord server, and we eventually just made amends and moved on from it. Their server started to flatline a little bit, if I'm being honest, so the guy who owned it actually came to me and asked if he'd be interested, or if I'd be interested in merging the Discord servers together to make one big community Discord server for everybody. Yay. Alongside that, I had a history alongside the Criminal Case Wiki itself. For years, I had been taking photos of the game and actually been putting them into the wiki. I don't know why I was so interested in it at the time. Maybe it was like a status thing for me, but for some reason, I found it kind of like my primary duty to do that pretty much 24/7 and put off a lot of other things that would have been a lot more important, like the real world. Of course, I was super strict about the quality of the photos when nobody else cared. And I think that I kind of just aggravated people because I was so stringent about it. I was like, you have to do it this way. You have to use it in this language. There was actually a specific font that you could use in a different language. It was pointless to do it like that, but you could. Hell, at one point, I was a staff member for the wiki itself. But like everything else I've been talking about, I got bored of the game and I moved on from that as well. Again, the wiki wasn't necessarily a safe haven, but it was more of like a second home for myself. A lot of people there I connected well with, and until I left, I seemed to enjoy myself and my time there. The wiki and the Discords weren't my only controversies, far from it. The two that I was mostly criticized for regarding were Kamol, no surprise there, and the guy who leaked. I think it's Naja? I don't know, okay. Kamol at least had a fair amount to criticize in the first place. He gotten popular over talent show-based content that he did not have the rights to, which likely ended up in getting his main channel terminated in the first place. And Naja, whatever, was notorious for game leaks, and a topic I was a little bit too passionate about because I absolutely abhorred people who would leak the game. Now, I will say in my own defense, I didn't like that people were doing this because it made it more difficult for myself to engage with my community without some asshole just coming through and ruining the rest of the case for me when I was doing a live stream. I didn't really care about as much if people wanted to figure out that stuff for themselves. I mean, if you did, whatever. The issue was that it always came back to me. It always came back to my chat, even if I put my chat on members only or mod only or slow mode, it didn't matter. That's actually why Pitching Ace 88 ended up using the Discord server that we had made and used one of the channels there specifically for people who were approved to talk in the chats to react. Mainly just because we had to be so stringent on to ensure that leaks weren't going to get through and that we would be able to actually enjoy the cases we were playing. People enabled the leaks, saying that if it's public information, it should be enabled and released. And I get that in a sense on some occasions. I still think it sets a horrible precedent for the future of the game. And if you're having a hard time understanding, take it like this. If it ever actually got fixed, if the files were able to be a little bit more hidden or hidden away better, people would make it their literal lives missions to dig their claws into the game and the game code, try and find more details that they can release to the world. I don't believe the claims from people like Naja, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that name, that if they were actually properly hidden away, that he would just delete his channel and that all of the videos he would stop doing it. I just don't believe that even one little bit. And I know at the time I put a lot of blame on Pretty Simple for this, but honestly, they didn't really have anything that they could have really done with it. Assuming that then not only they can't fix that problem, they can't just put the files somewhere else in the game because that's where the files are most accessible for them, and they would have to completely reroute their game if they were going to try and do it a different way. Alongside that, Pretty Simple really didn't have to, and like it was such a small issue to the millions of people who were playing the game. I'm not sure how many people play now, but it just didn't really make any sense for them to try so hard and rework the entire game for something that was so minimal that probably not even 1% of the community ever saw in the first place. Speaking of Pretty Simple, I had my fair share of criticisms about the developers of the game, even though most of those were just sour grapes. I do think my one fair criticism was the reworking or the redesign of the game, and I thought at the time that would just outright kill the game and people would just stop playing it. I was obviously wrong about that. But again, Adobe Flash was on a ticking time bomb, and they had to do something about it, and they had to make it a little bit different no matter what. Albeit, I feel like they could have taken their time a little bit longer. But nothing, and I mean literally nothing, could have prepared me for the next step of my life after these controversies. Scenery change. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm recording this on multiple different days, so you're just gonna have to live with the fact that I'm gonna be changing a couple things in the background because I'm still trying to finalize a couple things in the studio. So, following my departure from Criminal Case, I started to become a lot more of a helping hand to not only Pitching Ace 88, but Ace himself. I was a mod for the channel for the very longest time, even before he had taken his 6-month hiatus. And as of recently, at that time, I was helping him out with a lot of the thumbnails for a lot of his newest videos, so it wasn't just a blank capture frame of the video itself. It actually had a pretty little thumbnail and whatever. This continued for a while until I just asked if he would like me to help him manage the channel, which he gladly accepted. And this was a huge deal to me at the time. Understand, I had been such a big fan of Criminal Case because of Pitching Ace 88, like most of you most likely, and I got into the game because of him, and I've just been a big fan of Pitching Ace 88 for so long that it was an absolute honor to even get this opportunity in the first place. This was also relatively the same time the live streams that he was doing was moving from Twitch to YouTube, as it was much more beneficial for us to live stream on YouTube at the time, as that's where most people got their live streams. And we went from averaging like 50 to 60 viewers on Twitch to like 500 to 600 at a time on YouTube. It was absolute insanity. YouTube was also just about to make a bunch of big steps in their live streaming game that made it literally crucial for us to get videos out about the game as fast as we did. It was a huge step forward for us at the time. But I wanted to take things to the next level. I didn't want to just be the guy in the background. I wanted to be a part of the channel. So Aves was more than happy to oblige, and I started making some content from myself on the channel. This included a bunch of different games: The Walking Dead, Apex Legends, Choices, and Fortnite. Of course, I got addicted to the game everybody seemed to hate, and I really wanted it to go somewhere. And don't get me wrong, we had a couple of really good Fortnite videos, and I still think Save the World is, or was, underrated, but it wasn't meant too highly with the people who pretty much only came to the channel for criminal case content. However, the Choices game seemed to do a whole lot better on the channel. The viewership was higher, but not only that, people seemed to really engage a lot more with that game. And in retrospect, that actually makes sense because it is another story-based game and it's updated so often. There's a bunch of different stories. If I wanted to play a new story every day for an entire, like, just as periodically as possibly could until the stories themselves were starting to get completed, I probably could have. And also, I probably could have built up a huge following from the game itself. I just kind of started to lose interest in the game. It seemed kind of cheesy, a lot of the stories, and that was kind of that. Now, don't get me wrong, whilst my time with Pitching Ace 88 included some of the best moments in my life, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. And now, I don't care what anybody else says, I jumped on Pitching Ace 88 because I was extremely passionate about the channel and wanted to help out any way I could, not because I was looking to make more money. Now, at first, I didn't even bother asking for money because I saw my work as voluntary, but eventually, I just started getting paid anyways, and I don't know what you guys expect from a YouTube channel that plays a murder mystery video game, but the word criminal in every single title didn't really help out on the YouTube analytics. YouTube wasn't a fan of that in general, so the videos did not do very well. In fact, I actually compared the analytics. A criminal case video with 20,000 views made literally, I cannot make this up, 10 times less than a Fortnite video with half as many views. It was insanity. But that wasn't the bigger issue of the two. That one's on me. Hey guys, so for this next part of this video, this is not going to be a scripted portion of the video. A lot of this video is being read off of a script. This part is not. I'm going to try to do this in as much of an uncut fashion as I can to just try to explain everything, but I may not be able to. I might have to make some cuts here and there, but this will mostly not be edited as much as I can avoid it. Now, you might be asking, what am I talking about? Well, as most of you all know, I left Pitching Ace 88. I left Pitching Ace 88 over a year ago now, and I was going to leave no matter what. It was just kind of destined to happen. I didn't really feel I had a place on the channel. Pitching Ace 88 wasn't me. I was not Pitching Ace 88. Pitching Ace 88 wasn't me. It was just two different minds and ideologies, and it wasn't going to work out in the long term. So it was destined to happen no matter what. However, process of leaving Pitching Ace 88 was rough, and there's nobody to blame other than myself. Now, to explain the situation, I have to go back a little bit, talking about a friend of mine who was also the channel editor, or at least my editor, for the content that I wanted to make on the channel. And mostly for the sake of his privacy, I'm just going to refer to him as Alex. And Alex was a friend of mine, but he was also a video editor. And he had been banned in the Discord that we had for Pitching Ace 88. Pitching Ace 88 had its little Discord server, and we had staff there, and then myself and Ace pretty much overlooking everything. And he was a video editor. The only issue was he was known for being, how do I put this? Racist. He was racist. He was brutally racist, and it was not okay. And I told him, don't bring that attitude in the server. Keep it away from that. I don't want it to be anywhere near that culture. And he didn't listen to me, and I had to ban him. And I kind of blew him off as a friend. Because I just did not like the attitude. I didn't want to rub off on me. unfortunately, I kind of got weak and I didn't really, I didn't edit. I kind of burnt out. I didn't want to look at Premiere Pro and I just wanted some extra help. So I went back to him and he pretty much just, like, he literally said to me pretty much, why would I edit for community videos if I can't even be a part of the community? And I was just kind of in a rock and a hard place. And without asking the staff, remember, these people were volunteers who were willing to look over the rest of the server at the time, and also people who were making sure that other people weren't leaking the game for us and watching the live chat that we used instead of the YouTube live chat, because that wasn't as easily manageable. These people were taking their time out of the day. I will absolutely not name names. If they want to talk about it, that is on them, but I will respect their privacy as much as humanly possible throughout this. And they were not happy with my decision to unban him without asking them. And that's completely just because I banned him and then I unbanned him. And I didn't tell the staff I was going to unban him, and I didn't explain it to them, and they were really upset. Rightfully so. And I didn't get it at the time. I don't know why I didn't get it, but I didn't. And I didn't know what was up. And they got really, really, really upset with me, and they were more upset that he was in the server at all. And it got so bad to the point where I literally had to get him to go into a private chat with them and apologize. But the damage was kind of already done at that point. It was too late, and I had infamously just not been able to say the words, "I'm sorry," because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what I was supposed to be sorry for in the first place. And that was because I was ignorant, I wasn't paying enough attention, and I was also starting to become a little afraid. So it got worse, and they were looking at me, and they demanded that I apologize. I half-assed apologized, and they didn't like that, because I didn't address anything that was actually criticizable for at the time, because I was trying to stand my ground and defend him when he shouldn't have been defended in the first place, and I was getting mad that they were trying to overpower me or whatever the hell I was thinking at the time. So they didn't accept my apology. They went to Ace. Ace tried to calm the situation as much as he could, and I gotta thank him for that, because he could have easily just said, "Look, I can't have you around anymore, so you gotta go." And he didn't do that, and he tried to even the situation out. It just didn't work. And the staff team was getting really, really, really upset with me. They demanded that I give them more bargaining rights in the server, that every decision that was going to be made was partially on them, and that I apologized for all of these specific details and everything that had happened. And I had something in mind at the time, and I just didn't do it. And they got so frustrated, they lost their patience, and a couple of them resigned, and a couple of them left. And that was just kind of it at the time. A lot of people did not like what I was doing there. They thought I was being a bad owner and that I was starting to become a little bit dictatory. And sooner down the line, they kind of had a point. But at that time, that was it. Half the staff at the time resigned. A couple of them left the server. A couple of them stayed. Fast forward a little bit later, Alex, the editor, who remained in the server, mind you, changed his profile picture to something that I'm not going to detail. It was extremely inappropriate. That's all I'm going to say. It was extremely inappropriate. You can think whatever you want about it. It was extremely inappropriate. And I didn't see it fast enough. I didn't even know he changed his profile picture at the time. I couldn't see what it was until I zoomed in on it. And I was too late to actually take an action on it before the staff that had left and the staff that had resigned but stayed of the server all came pretty much to criticize me all at once for not doing anything about it publicly. The one thing I had asked of them that really made me seem like a piece of shit was that for them to keep it private. Now, in my defense here, I only did this because I did not want to tarnish the reputation of pitching Ace 88. I didn't want to put Ace himself into a position where he had to choose between the community or me or anything like that. I didn't want to have to make that choice. That's why I wanted to keep this mostly in private. However, that came with the problem of, well, that just wasn't going to happen. And I put people in a really bad position. And that's my fault. But that wasn't even the worst fuck up. I started to get really afraid that everything that I had put into pitching Ace 88 was going to be lost, that I was going to lose my spot. And I, out of complete fear, did one of the dumbest things I could do. I locked the Discord server pretty much for everybody except for patrons or for select active community members. And again, I say select very specifically as in I literally handpicked who could talk and who didn't. That was a complete dictator move on my part. And that's something that I regret every single day. I don't regret a lot. I barely regret anything. But that's something that I just look at and I was like, what the fuck was I doing? I don't know. And maybe regret wasn't the right word. I definitely shouldn't have done it. Don't get me wrong. And, I like to think that I don't have regrets because, these mistakes make me the person I am and help me prevent it from doing it in the future. But I really did kind of become a bit of a dictator, and I didn't realize how bad it was until it was far too late. The remaining staff that had stayed, one by one, ended up resigning until it was literally just me and Ace. It was me and Ace and a Discord server that became pretty much fully inactive because I literally froze it for people who weren't, using Patreon with us. And I turned that off like the day or two after, but it was already way too late. I should have never done it in the first place. That is the biggest fuck up I ever made with pitching Ace 88. And what the rest of the staff did was they made a new Discord server. And this is something I will criticize them on because, again, it kind of split the community. And this is something that I was really upset that happened. They made a new Discord server, and they said that it was going to be for Ace. It was going to be for the Criminal Case fans. And this server, the server that I pretty much taken full control of because all the other mods left, all the other staff left, I was pretty much alone in this server, along with the very few people that had come to pitching Ace 88 for anything but Criminal Case versus everybody else. And I did not want that to happen. And again, this was already at the time where I was contemplating just resigning from my spot and leaving. And it sucks. Don't get me wrong. It really sucks. But eventually I had a decision in front of me. I had a choice. I could either stay with pitching Ace 88 for the time and keep trying and see if I can make something work. But that risked, again, splitting the community and splitting the channel. I didn't want that to happen. I didn't want to make it seem as if Ace was only keeping me around so that he would have someone else manage his stuff. That's not what I wanted, and I didn't want that reputation to fall on him. I was doing all of this because I didn't want to hurt pitching Ace 88. But I should have stopped it when it started, and that was completely on me. And whilst, again, I'm a little bit upset of what the rest of the staff did at the time, making a complete other Discord server that Ace was going to use for live streams and everything moving further. It just seemed like the communities were half and half. And if I had stayed, I was risking more than anything else. I was risking everything for pitching Ace 88 because if I had stayed and I had messed it up even further, which I probably would have at the time if I did, I may have actually dug the channel's grave and could have ruined everything. I didn't want that. So pretty much immediately after they made that other Discord, I resigned. I announced my resignation. I talked it out with the rest of the staff. I made a genuine apology, and words can't describe how sorry I am for everything that happened and how awful of a manager I was at the time for pitching Ace 88. And it's something I reflect on very negatively, and whilst I have some other criticisms from the time, there's nobody to blame but myself. I could have stopped it at square one, and I didn't. I could have talked and fixed things, and I didn't. I made so many mistakes that I could have fixed, and I didn't fix them. And I only made things worse. And I'm glad that I actually resigned when I did, because I can't imagine what the channel would have looked like, would have been like, or the community, if I had stayed around and kept trying. And I'm glad that I went to do my own thing, albeit like a year after I left. And whilst it's sad for that era to end, I'm also happy for where I am now. I may not have the views or the recognition that Pitching Ace 88 does, but that's okay. It's not like I wanted that. I want to be able to make my own thing here, and I want to be able to move forward. And, you know, now I know. Now I know. I don't think I'll ever make these mistakes ever again. And again, I cannot describe how sorry I am for everybody that was affected. More than anything, I've got to make the biggest apology to Ace, because I put him in an ultimatum position. Because he eventually would have been there. He would have had to make the ultimatum. Okay, do I stay here with the staff and tell Kian he's got to go? Or do I keep him around and try to even the odds and risk opening the gap even further between these two very different communities? And I did not want to put that ultimatum on him, and I think I made the best decision at the end of the day by leaving. Because now everybody's happy. I'm not sure which staff are still there. I'm not in their Discord server. I'm leaving them be. I don't play the game anymore, so there's no reason for me to be there. And I, again, cannot say it enough, because it's just, words can't describe how fucking upset I am for my old self. And it's something if I could turn back time and do things right, I think I would. Whilst even though I'd still want to know to avoid this, but I just wish I didn't risk the channel as I did. And I am so sorry to everybody, the staff, Pitching Ace 88, Ace, for what happened. But that's in the past now. Everybody's happy and moved on. I still talk to Ace. He's one of my best friends over online, obviously. And what happened, happened. And now it's time to move forward. Now this is probably what you all have been waiting for, but I just want to say thank you for not only being patient, but assuming you didn't skip to this part, actually watching the rest of the video, and my experience with the game over my time playing it. I've covered pretty much everything that was of real significance, and now we get to talk travel in time. If you don't know how my in a nutshell videos work, neither do I. I just kind of cover shit, then I'll usually show gameplay, but the story here is the gameplay, so let's just get on with it. Season 6, Travel in Time. This season is about an interdimensional police force who are also time travelers. Well, that's it, roll credits. This season is another good example of low expectations with high delivery. Yes, it is blatantly fictional at times, but a lot of things were changed about Season 6 from the usual season meta that it not only provided a different experience, but a better one at that, at least comparatively. For starters, instead of 60 cases in the season, there were only 30, and the amount of cases per location went from 6 to 5. Minor detail, but that helped ensure the locations didn't feel too prolonged, especially when you're literally jumping around in time. I feel that the minor changes played a big role in its enjoyability. On the characters, I'll briefly summarize them, and if they're important enough throughout the season, they'll be talked about more in those moments, with the exceptions of the recurring characters from previous seasons, as I'll get onto those in the end. With that being said, time to meet the crew. Starting at the top of the Temporal Investigation Management and Exploration Agency, or TIME if you're cool, is Christopher Scott, the chief who doesn't actually come with you to the past, so you barely see him until one point in the middle and at the very end. By far the worst chief in the game, and that's astounding, seeing even Ripley at least did most of her job. Covering that up is Season 2 rookie cop turned hardened team coordinator Amy Young, who I'm going to refer to as the actual chief for the Temporal Crimes Division, or TCD if time wasn't cool enough, because at least she was present for more than 3 or 4 cases. Then the partners, starting with Zara Tien. I think that's how you say that. Zara is newer to the job than most, and honestly just felt like a pushed character to me. It felt like I had to learn about her life than it generally just happening. Could just be me though, or the fact her other partner is Season 3's favorite, or least favorite character, depending on who you ask, and my lookalike when I had short hair, yes, it's Jack Archer. Jack's a bit older now, and you can tell, poor dude is graying, and not because the devs decided his hair was just gray like they did with David Jones. Your coroner is Janice Rivers, this 7-year-old lady who actually feels like the life of the party when this fucking game will let you actually celebrate literally anything. The other lab guy is Theodore Moon, or as I'll refer to him, the simp of the century. Every story needs a good techie, and Kai Milano is this series' Chad, a man Theo wishes he could be. For once, it actually makes sense there being 2 different historians, seeing you're literally traveling through time. Orlando Ortolafi, I hope I said that right, and his assistant Penelope Sage take up those spots and also may possibly have the most historian-sounding names in the entire game. And the final character, I waited until the end to talk about on purpose, the profiler from Season 3 and the candidate for most annoying character in said season, Marina Romanova. Fun fact, Marina was actually the inspiration for the first teaser that was actually released. Yes, I made those teasers, surprise, surprise. The season starts with Jackboy telling you to come help him fix the past or whatever, and because you literally have zero comms in this game, because that makes sense, you go back to Egypt with the Time Squad to hunt down illegal time travelers. Basically, some people with access to the 2029 technology that your team has, but it's cooler after arresting Julius Caesar's new killer and fixing time to make it make sense, you go back aboard to realize something isn't right. Instead of being sent back to the present, you're consistently being sent slightly further ahead of the previous time because there's some sort of error in need of fixing. You find one of those errors aboard as an Egyptian slave worker known as Nabet snuck onto your time machine, and somehow, because the invisible cloaking mechanism wasn't so invisible. Now, whilst you could send her back to her time, she begs you not to, as she would again work until she literally dropped dead. You then face one of the game's moral dilemmas. Do you sacrifice the future of all mankind to ensure one person's safety, or do you become directly responsible for their undoing by sending them back? Of course, this is Criminal Case, and you don't get to answer that question, and you all decide, what could go wrong with keeping an Egyptian slave around? Going through time, you realize you need to ensure this other redhead doofus Octavian doesn't mess shit up. But he says, what if we set Egypt aflame? Of course, everybody's like, no, don't do that. And he says, but what if I did? I'm starting to understand why people dislike redheads in this game. Anywho, Mark Antony comes into the game just to die by Cleopatra, which if you know Egyptian lore isn't that surprising, however slightly altered. Cleopatra also took Nabet for a bit, but the team was able to convince her to take Nabet back somehow after they fool and scare the redhead leader away, and bam! Time is solved and they can finally go back home. Psych! We're nowhere close to done. Turns out they get stuck in the 60s and they decide Nabet's been cool enough to let her help investigate, which is great and all. I mean, Nabet's a cool character and one of my personal favorites of the season, but that just doesn't make any sense. The reason they got stuck in the 60s, though, is mainly due to a vigilante time traveler who was trying to keep the team stuck in time for good. Honestly, other than that, this district wasn't really important. You had to steal some Da Vinci's papers only to find out the guy that took them was killed. It was also Marina's granddad, but it's not enough for you to go all the way back to the Renaissance ages to find the man himself to help you fix your fucking time machine to go home. Holy shit. You do so and things are looking up for once until you actually get back to realize things are not the same and the timeline has been far too altered. These guard dudes take Nabet as they see her as a threat or some shit and seize the time machine, which still wasn't properly cloaked. Thankfully, Chief Scott made it to this timeline, except for only a few seconds after the big reveal to everyone, excluding the people who found out 4 weeks early because of leaks. Scotty Boy's dead. You find his killer and the leader of the resistance of that time. You then conclude this entire altered timeline was set up in purpose by the new rulers, the Ptolemy dynasty, which I definitely butchered that, holy shit, to basically regain their monarchy and power. And the figure who ties this all together was none other than Princess Nefertiti, aka Nabet. Now, literally everyone I saw at the time had a jaw-dropping moment when this happened, and whilst this may be my most controversial statement I ever make about Criminal Case, Nabet ending up being a primary antagonist in this fashion is the best plot twist in Criminal Case history. After being hidden, Nefertiti, who I'm referring to as Nabet, sue me, has them captured, and in the weirdest errand she has, the team literally made of professional crime solvers solve her father's murder. Even though it was her who literally tossed a pot of molten gold or some shit on his head and planned to do the same to good old Mama as well. Mom wasn't too happy about this and sent Nabet to forced labor somewhere else, and as a thank you for stopping her daughter's plan to kill her, she sentences the team and the resistance to execution. But maybe Queen Shabaka should have warmed up more in CSGO, because a bomb just goes off and they, over time, get back on board. And now, to introduce the actual primary antagonist of the game, Amon Blast. Amon was the guy who initially tinkered with the time machine in the first place to keep the team stuck in time, and who's been the nefarious devil traveling in time to his own to stop the team from fixing the already altered timeline. However, the team headed back in 1719 straight to Pirates Galore, where the main goal was to stop Amon from seizing commercial routes to the Ptolemies, which led to a lot. Darley Nero turned into a fish or some shit. There's a girl literally just called Monday. Mary Reed isn't here. I'm gonna be honest, these last two districts are the blurriest, as this was the time I had left pitching Ace 88 and almost fully lost interest in the game. However, I'll do my best to elaborate where I can. Basically, this all led up to a specific auction of French ports and plantations. The auctioneer got his head blown off, Orlando got shot, but lived, and Amon sneakily got away with shooting Orlando, going back to 1235 medieval Mongolia. Why do they keep going back in fucking time? However, before Aman left, he smuggled a bunch of weapons to give to the Khan at the time, trying to make the Mongols attack and win over Chinese, thus throwing history in Aman's favor. It didn't work, and as a last resort, he killed the main informant, keeping the Khan's princess safe. The last case of this location was kind of confusing. Kylie was nearly killed, Theo was literally disappearing due to him not having his heritage lined up properly, the worm was thrown off, and as punishment for everything he did, Aman was executed on the spot by the Khan. However, the damage Aman had done was already too drastic, and as the team's last resort, shipped up all the way back to 47 BCE to arrest Nabet and Aman in their place to ensure their timeline can still be saved. There's a few problems with this final challenge though. Doing this wouldn't stop their past selves who were solving Caesar's murder from engaging with each other, so they have to play it safe. The bigger problem, though, is that when they went to find Nabet and Aman was nowhere to be found, and Nabet was dead? What? Aman was later found, and after being arrested, escaped from his cell. You go down to chase him, but this killer's out for everybody and ripped Aman's fucking heart out. Holy shit, dude. And in the second biggest plot twist of the season, the killer was none other than Nabet herself? What the fuck? Did I read this right? Well, future Nabet from 2060, who got tired of all that labor, tried to reason with the two, which clearly didn't work out. Yes, people, she literally killed herself. It doesn't make sense to me either. This is literally the fucking example of that meme that was just like fucking trust nobody, not even yourself. But she apologized for her actions and asked forgiveness before she very timely faded away out of existence. Nabet, in my opinion, was by far the most thought out and brilliant antagonist in criminal case history. I know I'm tooting her horn here, and like every antagonist, it didn't work out for her in the end, but the way she literally was so comfortable and felt like a real member of the team, she's what I imagine Michelle Zaria would have been if she survived long enough to be an antagonist. I mean, if Michelle became an antagonist, because my theory still has credence. You know what? Fuck it. I give up. Fine, she's fucking dead. I don't care anymore. In all seriousness, Nabet became one of my favorite characters, which is rare because I'm not a fan of antagonists in this game most of the time, but it was just played so damn well. Recurring characters were a huge step up from their counterparts, Jack being quite a bit more personable but not in such an annoying way you wish you had Jones back, Amy becoming a hardened boss that would make her Season 2 self scared as all hell, and Marina going from a whiny little baby about how much she loves/hates Jonah to a more calm and versatile character that I really enjoyed. The season did a great job of righting a lot of wrongs, and I feel it's going to go superbly underrated in a lot of people's season rankings. But I'm sure some of you are asking the question, but what about your season rankings, Kian? And if you aren't, that's just too bad, because this video still isn't finished, motherfucker. Alright, to finally wrap up the video, I wanted to take a moment to look at all of the seasons of Criminal Case over time and rank them based on my experience and overall how I thought their stories played out in the end. This won't be nearly as long or as detailed as In a Nutshell was, but I'll go into detail where it's needed. A couple notes before I get into it. One, again, this is my opinion, this is my own experience with the game, so take it with face value and understand that this is what I believe, and if you believe differently, that's perfectly okay. And also, just as a fun little tidbit, make some tier lists in the comments below. Make a comment below with how you would rank the seasons of the game. And two, I will not be including seasons 7 and 8, as season 8 hasn't even fully finished yet, and I barely looked at season 7. I know there was like werewolves and zombies and the vampire chick, and she gets like yeeted off a mountain or some shit, but that's like all I know. That's it. I did not pay attention to season 7 otherwise, so I don't think it's fair for me to be putting it into the ranking list. So just an FYI, this is 1 through 6. And with that out of the way, let's go. All right, F tier. This is a season that just did nothing right. The season sucked. Absolutely awful. Nothing was ever done properly this season. The stories were awful. The plot was awful. The characters were awful. Nothing fit right. That's why there's nothing in F tier. Surprised. But D tier, there's also nothing. Because I think that most seasons did more right, or at least just the same amount of right that they did wrong, or even if they did maybe a tiny bit more wrong, that they rewarded that back with characters and or plot or something else like that. I don't think there was any season that got more wrong than they got right, is what I'm saying. However, C tier is where things start to shake up a little bit. C tier is where I'd say it's either pretty evenly balanced on things that I feel like they got right versus the things that I feel like they really didn't nail on the head, and or maybe they got a little bit worse. They had a little bit worse off, but some of the characters and plot made it up for it. There's actually only one season in the C tier list, and that is season 5. This may come as a surprise to some of you, maybe it won't, but honestly, Season 5 just felt like kind of a bad version of Season 1. I felt like the revisiting of a lot of the characters, Jones, Kathy, Alex, Ramirez, I guess, it just felt really sloppy. It didn't feel like the old versions of the characters, and when it tried to, it just felt forced. It didn't really seem like they really were able to nail their aggression in the way that I would have hoped that they did. The season also felt really filled. Like, it felt like there was a bunch of filler content we were playing through to get to the actual points, and the points were just so far and few in between because there were 60 cases that up until like the last 12, it just felt messy, and I don't know. I had a really hard time connecting with a lot of the season and its point, which is the whole conspiracy thing. However, I did like the actual group of antagonists with Ad Astra. I liked how you actually figured out who these people were one at a time. Again, it felt like it took too long in between a lot of them, and it got way too cartoony at the end. It got way too cartoony at the end. I will also say that the additional investigations felt like the only part of the plot for the majority of the cases, and overall, the season kind of felt dry. No, I'm not upset because they killed off Rita in the last case. I actually thought that was pretty dope. I mean, what better way to go out than to literally blow the fuck up? One more thing about Season 5. I will say, Rupert actually being dead in Case 32 was a really good plot twist. Like, everybody was like, okay, no, at some point they're gonna reveal that it's actually the other dude. It's not actually Rupert. Nope. Rupert just fucking died. That's the only one for C tier. Now we're moving on to B tier. This is where these seasons definitely got a lot more right than wrong, or got a little bit more right than wrong, but there were some aspects of that wrong that were just kind of crucial that kept them from being an A tier. So maybe they did a lot right, but there was a part here and there, or one character, or this or that, that just kind of dragged it down from like an A tier or an S tier rating. We're gonna start off with Season 3. I actually thought Season 3 was a pretty good season overall. It had pretty decent plot, and it was consistent with one primary antagonist being this literal ginormous group of people who are evil and trying to change the world and trying to change how humanity works, and the strong survive with Sombra. I thought that was a really good case plot throughout the entirety of the season. I just felt like it could have had not only better execution, I just felt like the finish with it, the actual conclusion, was just really bad. I don't know, maybe this is just sour grapes on my part, but I felt like the final case was awful. It just, you had, what, 7 other cases to build up to the final conclusion. What's really gonna happen? Everybody thinks that this is where the actual Sombra leader overall was going to be revealed. It was revealed the case before, and I feel like that just took a lot of the oomph out of it. Like, a character that no one cared about was the victim, and that pretty much everybody disliked. The killer was somebody that everybody also really either didn't care about or disliked. And the way that they had Armand go out like that, that was just, it felt so awful. It was such a bad final antagonist with the VP. I don't know. It was just really, really sloppy at the end. And alongside that, there were so many other ways they could have transitioned from Season 3 to Season 4 with that ending, with Armand still passing, or still at least passing on his literal past with that book. And I just felt like there was more to expect from that with that final case, and I just ended up being disappointed. Speaking of transitioning from Season 3 to Season 4, yep, the other season in B tier, Season 4. I actually think Season 4 was quite underrated. I think that because it was a past season, or like, oh my god, you're going back to the 1890s, it's way too cartoonish now, I think that a lot of people initially blew it off, but I think it actually did not only, again, a fairly accurate job of describing up a lot of the events from the past, albeit with a couple of really confusing moments that may have made up for a couple of theory videos or whatever. But that last fucking district in Mysteries of the Past was sloppy. Sloppy, to put it very kindly. They killed off the primary judge that didn't even want to be the judge at that point because he had to be pulled out of retirement. They made Justin Lawson a dictator from another specific dictator in the previous history, because we knew they were pulling bits and pieces from the past. I did not think they were gonna go to that extent with how they did with Lawson. Holy shit. There were so many other ways to make Lawson a primary antagonist. And here's the thing, everybody kind of initially thought that Lawson was gonna become an evil dude at some point. Like, you know the saying, if things are too good to be true, it probably is. People saw this coming, and it was just this slow little buildup. it just felt really weak. And then this whole regime thing, everybody's trying to take over, and then they get captured, then they get released, then they solve one of their own teammates' death, whilst the person who's solving it just gave birth. I think the biggest part of this is that it made good characters intentionally bad. Not only with Lawson, but Diego. Diego was a fantastic character, and he ended up being kind of an accidental villain here because he literally had to kill the final person. He was literally forced by Maddie to not be helpful, and I feel like his ending is so unjustified. He should have never even been charged with anything because he literally kind of saved the rest of the fucking world. It's him that actually saved Mysteries of the Past in the end, but they painted him as the villain because he was the killer. And dude, there were so many characters that just got into really bad situations. Julieta is another one. I probably butchered that name again. But yeah, making good characters intentionally bad at the end. And I don't know. I just feel like there was another angle that they could have taken the end of this with, and this is just not what it should have been. All right, now we're moving on to A tier. A tier is seasons that did way more good than they did bad and are really close to being S tier seasons, but there's just those one or two things that kind of held them back from being an S tier season, First one on the block is Season 2. Season 2, I think, again, is more of an underlooked season. I think that it actually nailed the head on the hammer with... Did I say that right? Whatever. It fucking hit home with the characters and the plot. I think it actually did a really, really good job, majorly, even if the ending wasn't as desirable as could be, but it finished everything right. It tied up all loose ends. And even though it was really fictional, which is why I kind of pulled it back from being an S-tier season that escaped from realism in that sense, I still feel like it did way more right than wrong. It had extremely good characters. I know people are still critical of Season 2 Amy Young, but I think she was at least a palpable character. And Frank Knight, who had this just kind of good guy, bad guy, back to good guy, no, back to bad guy. Okay, fine, you'll be the good guy, whatever, just be dead already. Season 2 was also by far the most emotional season, I would say. It really tugged at your heartstrings, even halfway through, with Amy having to arrest her own brother, who she thought was paralyzed, and just wasn't. This guy could just get up and walk all he wanted and just sat in a wheelchair for the entire time and was a serial killer all of a sudden. That, oh my god, that was priceless, dude. But that was also, again, something that really tugged on those heartstrings, and I think Season 2 was the master at that, which is why it is an A tier. And finally, the other season in the A tier category. This will surprise some people, but it's Season 6. Now, I already talked a shit ton about Season 6 from the In a Nutshell and why I feel it did a lot of things right. But just to recap, yes, it was culturally accurate with a lot of its pasts, and I think it did. The researchers, the developers actually did a really good job with piecing it all together given the time frame and seeing that this was the first time they experimented, wow, I can't talk today. Experimented with 30 cases, which was so far from the norm of 56 to 60, and they did a fantastic job at it. Alongside that, they really made up from what they did in Season 5 when they revisited a lot of the recurring characters. It was so much better this time around. I really liked how they brought back the characters and then surrounded them with equally good characters, albeit some of them were not as good as others. Not to mention, no matter which way you look at it, Season 6 included some of the best plot twists in the entire game. You cannot say that it didn't have some of the best plot twists in the entire game, so don't say it. Don't say it, okay? Listen to me here, okay? However, alongside the fact that, again, it was a time-traveling season, so it was already super fictional, which kind of grasped from that reality of the sense, it also just felt kind of rushed at times. I feel like there were things that needed more explanation and just were not explained. You just kind of had to believe it, and it was like the source was like, dude, trust me. So it felt kind of weird. All right, now we're finally making it to S tier. This is the season of seasons. It might not be perfect, it might not have had everything going for it, but when you're thinking about an iconic season, you already know which season I'm gonna say here because it's the only one I haven't listed yet, and it's not 7 and 8 because I said I wasn't gonna list those. Yes, Season 1 is the S tier season. What a surprise. I feel like a lot of what Season 1 did, a lot of the really close connections that made it seem more real, reminding you that, hey, Grimsboro is this real place. It's not too cartoony or fictional. just kind of got lost over time. I feel like a lot of the dialogue from the characters changed after season 1 to, I guess, make it feel more safe. And that really upsets me because season 1 did so much because it felt so real. It didn't even have to try too hard a lot of the times. It just kind of envisioned this alternate reality where you're this cop and you're gonna solve murders and this is how it's like and these are the people, but it felt real. Again, I keep saying that word, but this is the only season, this is why it's an S tier season, that felt real. I would say the one gripe with season 1 was that, yeah, it felt kind of plain at times, and that may have been its biggest weakness, but other than that, season 1 was pretty much perfect, and it's the best we're ever gonna get, so let's be honest. But yeah, that's my tier list. Season 1 for S tier, seasons 2 and 6 for A tier, seasons 3 and 4 for B tier, and season 5 for C tier. Nothing for D and F tier, but that's up to you guys. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think, where you would put season 7 if you actually followed season 7, and where you would have put the rest of these seasons. Like, make your guys' own tier lists in the comments below. I'd love to see what you guys have cooking up there. Guys, we're done. We did it. We covered everything there is to cover from my time playing the game. It's done. I can stop seeing people telling me to go back and play Criminal Case again. Actually, you know what? That's probably only going to get worse now. Shit! For the best of my recollection, I got everything I could cover. I gave my opinions and criticisms when needed, but I hope I did my past justice in the end of it. If you've been a long-time viewer and have come back for the finale of Criminal Case on my channel, thank you. If you're a brand new viewer and somehow just from our channel and decided to watch the rest of this video anyways, thank you as well. Appreciate it. But I'm ready to move on. If you love me, hate me, it doesn't matter. Either way, I'm going to move on with my life, and I can finally let go of some of the things that have lurked inside of my mind that have haunted me for the last couple of years. I may have not always done the right things, but I've always tried. And now, I'm gonna go do. As in, like, do something else. I'm gonna play some other games. What games? I don't know, like Apex, some shit. 6 games, most likely. I promise it won't just be Fortnite, okay? I want to be able to add my own voice into these games, if that makes sense, okay? Just... I'm not a Fortnite YouTuber. I feel like my biggest mistake with Criminal Case is that people came to my channel for the game and didn't stay here for me. That was easily my biggest mistake. People didn't want to stay here for me and my other content and what I was going to continue making. They were just here for the game. And I feel like that was my biggest mistake because I lost a lot of friends and fans because of that when I left the game behind initially. And that changes now, is what I'll say. If you were here and only here for Criminal Case and this video did not convince you that I can make other content really good, then thanks for watching at the very least. But if it did and you're looking to subscribe or resubscribe or whatever you might be thinking, if you're already subscribed, I can't thank you enough. And thank you for believing in me and at least trusting me enough in that subscription when I feel like I've just had this thought and feeling of just not being enough or not doing enough, never being good enough in that sense. I want you all to know I'm more committed to streaming and making content now than I've ever been. I mean that, by the way. I still stream every Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, right here on this YouTube channel. I usually stream earlier in the morning, like 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, around that time. So if you want to see more live streams and you want to see more content from the channel, subscribe and turn on post notifications so you never miss a new video or a new live stream. I promise you, I am going to keep consistent with this. And if it changes, I'll let you know. Follow me on Twitter or whatever, just so you know if anything changes and what the future of this channel is to come. Alongside that, if you really enjoy my content, I do have a memberships program on the channel now for the cool kids. So if you guys want to join the cool kids, you can click that join button right next to the subscribe button. You should click that as well. Or if that's not there, click the link in the description below and check that out. It starts at 99 cents a month, and that gets you access to exclusive channels and exclusive roles in the Cool Kids Discord server, alongside exclusive community-only posts and live streams. Guys, oh my goodness. With that all said and done, the video is over. Spread your wings, fly high, and for a final time, case closed.